This video has been produced to help soccer coaches understand the teaching progressions involved in coaching modern soccer. It is characterized by the fact that the player has to deal with various playing situations and, above all, to find the solutions to the technical and tactical problems arising during play. The coach, in this context, has the job of organizing his players on the pitch according to effective and easily understood tactical formations. He should try to evaluate the potential of each subject and to use a teaching method which tends to create a winning attitude, both in the individual and in the team. The theoretical foundations of which teaching of modern soccer is based can be summarized as follows. A. The players take up positions on the playing field in relation to the position of the ball and their own goal. B. They are not given an opponent to neutralize, but a zone to control, within which any opponents must be marked and the ball won. C. All players take part in defensive play. D. They are mentally and physically prepared for transition, for instance, simultaneous defense-attack and attack-defense. E. The player is at the service of the team, and the team is at the service of the player. Modern soccer requires intelligent players who, after having correctly understood the development of the playing situation, are able to adapt quickly to changing tactical situations. The players must also be generous, willing to cooperate and dedicate themselves to hard work. The exercises we present here with the help of the Atalanta youth team require specific previous training aimed at consolidating the technical abilities of each player. The team referred to for our teaching purposes is wearing the black and blue strip. The exercises begin with a 2-on-2 situation outside the penalty area. 2 central defenders face 2 forwards, who first of all move the ball, then with a ball each, and finally with 1 ball between them. The instructor brings to the attention of the players the concept of transition from attack to defense. Also note how the last defender covers and takes up a diagonal position. One of the 2 centers forces the adversary towards the wing. The other has the job of defending the central corridor. The two centers take up positions in relation to the position of the ball in their goal. While one player brings the ball to the pitch, the two central defenders take it in turns to mark the forward. Around a square whose sides are approximately 3 meters from the center circle, the two outside defenders move in relation to the position of the ball played between 4 opponents. Here we can see the diagonal defense and, when the two centers are in position, the line defense. When the ball is central, the two wing-backs are positioned on the same line, at the corners of the square. When the ball is on the wing, the player on the strong side presses the opponent of the ball, while his teammate moves to the center and takes up a position on the diagonal line between the ball and the goal. This position allows him to anticipate and intercept the opposition's passes. A center back and a wing back mark two opponents according to their movements. An opponent brings the ball down the wing whilst the wing back presses him, slowing down the action. His teammate moves back to mark. Here we see the players superimpose one another, two defenders exchanging marking and respect the assigned zones. The two center backs and a wing back move in function of three opponents and mark accordingly. Four defenders move outside the penalty area with 2 points of reference. They move up, down and across the pitch, widening their formation as they move forward and shrinking as they retreat. Diagonal defense on 4 lines. Eagle defense on 3 lines. Defense on 2 lines. Diagonal defense. Defense on 4 lines. The wingback presses the zone of the ball. The other members of the defense form a line to cover him and support each other. This pattern is evident, makes it difficult to spring the offside trap. Eagle defense. Defense on 3 lines. The 3 players placed on the strong side are positioned diagonally. One presses, the others stay back in support. Their teammate on the weak side is placed on the second defense line and makes sure he does not leave himself unprotected behind. Defense on 2 lines. The wingback presses the zone with the ball while his teammates form a single line. The goalkeeper has to pay particular attention as he may be needed to act as a sweeper. The 4 defenders move in relation to 4 opponents, first without the ball and then with a ball each. The coach here should make it clear how the defensive triangle is formed. Ball placed in the center. The defense moves into action by forming a triangle, where a center presses the zone of the ball and the other position themselves on a single line of cover. Note how the player on the weak side moves to the center to make the defense block more compact. The four defenders now move in relation to the four opponents passing the ball between them. In this way, it is possible to further emphasize the concepts of transitional diagonal defense, the eagle formation, and the defensive triangle. The four defenders move in relation to five opponents, four midfielders passing the ball between them, and a forward moving horizontally along the line of attack. Notice how the defenders exchange marking of the forward. Attention must be paid not only to the forward's position, but also to that of the ball. This exercise shows the action of four defenders, moving in relation to five opponents. For example, three midfielders and two forwards. The forwards move along the line of attack whilst the defenders take up the best tactical positions. This emphasizes the diagonal defense, the central line formation, and the consequent progressive restriction of the central corridors. The two forwards are marked according to their respective zones and exchanged according to their position, movements, and taking account of interchangeability. After the opposition goalkeeper's kick, four defenders position themselves along an ideal line. Their movements depend on the movement of the opponents and the ball. Players with no opponents to mark cover. It is important to note how the opponent and the ball are attacked simultaneously. Note also the protective movement of the other defenders. The same exercise, once more starting with the goalkeeper's kick, but here with 4 against 3. 3 defenders attack the opponents, whilst the others take up a protective covering position. This time, after the opposition goalkeeper's kick, the 4 defenders advance quickly together in a line, with the aim of placing 2 or 3 opponents offside. Four defenders move against 6 opponents, 4 midfielders and 2 forwards. Note how the 4 defenders move out on the goalkeeper's clearance towards the opposition. Central, in line, sideways, diagonal. When the opposition requires possession without being pressed, the defenders stop and, if necessary, change direction. Three defenders against 3 forwards. The exercise takes place 3/4 of the way down the pitch and is aimed at springing the offside trap. It is important to emphasize the synchronized aggressive action of the 3 defenders against the opponent in possession. The same exercise can be carried out in situations of numerical inferiority. For example, 3 against 2 or 4 against 3, with the same objective of placing the opponents offside. Four defenders lined up in the penalty area prepare to start an offensive action initiated by the goalkeeper. Note the various movements made to move the ball around. The opening movement, contraction towards the player in possession, protection, and moving out. The 4 defenders pass the ball between them and move the ball out quickly. Back pass and move out on the wings. Long passes from one side of the pitch to the other, sudden changes of play may surprise the opposition and make it difficult for them to defend effectively. This exercise is like the previous one, with the difference that the rapid attacking move is made by the central players. 4 defenders against 2 opponents. In this circumstance, the rapid moves forward are repeated both on the wings and centrally. The moves forward in an attack situation are dictated by the movement of the opposition forwards and by the creation of free space. Five-player zone. 5 defenders against 5 opponents, 3 midfielders and 2 forwards, who pass the ball between them. The defenders, as in the 4-player zone, move according to the position of the ball, strong side of the playing field, following tactical movements diagonally and in line, and forming defensive triangles. With this defensive formation, which combines the concepts of zone play with man-to-man marking, one of the 3 centers, depending on the development of the action and the opponent's movements, may become a sweeper or cover the others. The behavior of the wingbacks faithfully reflects the dictates of zone play. Better cover is obtained by defending in 5, both on the wings and centrally, and there are greater chances of help and support. The zone covered by each individual is smaller than in a 4-player defense. Three-player zone. 3 defenders against 4 opponents, 3 midfielders and a forward who pass the ball around. The defenders position themselves in relation to the position of the ball. The concepts of diagonal, line, and triangle remain unaltered. The space to cover is larger and requires greater attention. The 3 defenders move in relation to the play of the 5 opponents, 3 midfielders and 2 forwards, passing the ball between them. The movements of the defenders emphasize the formations of the 4-player zone: defensive diagonal, line, and triangle. In this situation, it is fundamental that the three defenders are able to confidently deal with a one-on-one situation. Four defenders and a midfielder move in relation to the position of five opponents passing the ball between them. The coach again emphasizes the diagonal and line formations, the triangle defense, the eagle formation, help and support. The defensive triangle formation is emphasized with the wing-back at the top corner. The base is composed of a central defender and the midfielder, who are ready to give support and help press the opponent in possession. The same exercise is repeated with four defenders and midfielders passing the ball between them. The input to the defense is supplied by the movement of the ball. With the ball in movement in the center, the square formation is visible. Two midfielders and two central defenders, and the subsequent transformation into two triangles formed by the central midfielders and three defenders. This formation emphasizes and aids the closure of the central corridors and the compactness of the block. Four defenders and two midfielders move in relation to five opponents, passing the ball between them. The coach suddenly throws a ball to a player at random. The team consequently assumes a suitable defensive formation. The introduction of the ball by the coach involves an immediate attack by one or more players near the zone of the new point of reference for the defense. This action prevents a fast counterattack and allows the teammates to close off the offensive zones and reform the defensive block. Around the midfield square, whose sides are 3 meters from the center circle, 4 defenders and 2 wing centers move according to the position of the ball, passed between 4 opponents. Note here also the formation of the defensive triangle, the line, diagonals, help, and support. Two wingbacks and 4 midfielders move defensively in relation to 5 opponents, passing the ball between them, 4 midfielders and a defender. Note the diagonals of the midfielders and defenders, the triangle of midfielders and the 2-line defense when the ball is central. In this exercise, the 4 midfielders repeat the moves of the defenders, with the advantage of being helped and supported by them. Four defenders and 4 midfielders move without any opponents as a point of reference. On the instructions of the coach, they move forwards, backwards, and sideways, emphasizing the 2 defensive diagonals and the center block. Here we can see the elasticity of the team in forming and dismantling geometrical figures, the equilibrium of movements forwards and backwards, the ability to maintain a constant distance between the players, and the compactness of the group. Four defenders and 4 midfielders move in relation to 4 points of reference, opposition midfielders. The coach instructs them how to move. The same exercise is repeated with the ball. Note the organization of the two defensive diagonals and defense triangle formed by the midfielders with the defenders in line and the central block. The previous exercise is repeated. Here, the coach throws a ball into the defensive block. It immediately becomes the tactical defensive point of reference for the whole team. All the players line up closely behind the line of the ball, after which the new defensive lineup takes shape. The exercise is based on the previous formation, 4 defenders and 4 midfielders. When the coach puts a ball into play, the group lines up in a defensive formation. Once won, the ball must be given to the coach. At the same time, the whole defensive moves forward. Four defenders and 4 midfielders pass the ball between them. At a certain point, a player plays a long ball into the opposition half and the team formation contracts. The same exercise is repeated. The ball is kicked up the field. After the team has moved forward, it is placed back to the block and becomes the new point of reference for the defense. Four defenders and 4 midfielders move in relation to the 7 opponents, a defender, 4 midfielders, and 2 forwards. All of the tactical moves previously illustrated are put into practice, as well as double teaming of the forward by the wingback and wing center. Note the passive attitude of the other players. Pressing is a distinctive part of the modern game. It can be developed on 3 lines, and its use is dictated by the characteristics of a team's forwards, by the strength of the opposition, and by the game situation. The same exercise is repeated, but with double teaming in the zone of the ball and pressing on the opposition. The opposition player alone on the opposite weak side of the pitch is left free. Pressing is effective if supported by effective double teaming. The team stays compact with the aim of creating a numerical majority in the ball zone. The players are arranged as in the 2 previous exercises. In this case, however, it is the 2 central midfielders who are double teamed. This exercise illustrates one-on-one pressing. It occurs when the player with possession turns around to face his own goal. Notice how the team waits and its compact way to attack. The player attacking the player with the possession should press constantly and make sure he is not passed. Springing the offside trap. 4 defenders and 4 midfielders are lined up against 7 opponents. A defender, 4 midfielders, and 2 forwards. When the ball is given to the defender and he moves to pass it, the whole team moves up the field to place the opposition forwards offside. Be careful, however, not to abuse the offside trap, since teams are likely to have relative countermeasures. Offside is played here after restarting play from a dead ball situation. 6 or 8 opponents are present. The return of the protected player to help out should be emphasized. 4 defenders and 4 midfielders line up after the opposition goalkeeper's kick. It is important to emphasize here the job of the midfielders, who have to anticipate their opponents after an eventual clearance by their teammates. This tactical move involves a certain amount of risk if the team does not contain excellent aerial players. If they do, it allows the possibility of numerical superiority in attack. Four defenders and 4 midfielders initiate an attacking move, first slowly, then with a long ball across the pitch to speed up the attack. Deceit and surprise are important weapons in modern soccer. Knowing how to read the game is part of a team's tactical armor. Four defenders and 4 midfielders play against 2 opponents in possession. The team passes from defensive action to winning the ball and then to immediately moving forward to the opposite wing after a diagonal pass. The same exercise is repeated, with the wing-back makes a through pass for the rapid cut inside by a midfielder. The 2 forwards move in relation to 4 defenders, passing the ball between them, who are trying to gain ground ahead. The opposing goalkeeper passes the ball to a wing-back, a forward attacks him, whilst the other forward attacks the supporting defender. During this exercise, the 2 forwards do not allow the defenders to advance with the ball. Two forwards and 2 midfielders play against 6 opponents, 4 defenders and 2 midfielders. When the ball is in possession of the wing-back, the forward presses him, inviting him to pass the ball to the central midfielder, who will then be pressed by 3 players, 2 forwards and the midfielder. The 2 forwards move to double-team the wing centers after they've received the ball from the defenders. 2 forwards and 2 wing centers play against 6 opponents, 4 defenders and 2 wing centers, who pass the ball between them. On a pitch of 50 by 40 meters on either side of the center, a team lines up in 4-4-2 formation. The players play two-touch soccer, maintaining the distance between their positions. When the coach calls a player, he becomes a point of reference for the defense. The other players position themselves consequently. Note the defensive position of the players. The concept of transition is emphasized. At the coach's signal, the team mentally organized for attack must immediately abandon this attitude to assume a defensive role, thus preventing an immediate through pass, slowing down the opponent's action and allowing quick reformation of the block. In the same practice area as the previous exercise, the players pass the ball between them, maintaining the distances unaltered. When the coach blows the whistle, the player with possession immediately becomes the point of reference. The object of these exercises consists in training the players for an immediate transition from attack to defense. In the same practice area, the players pass the ball between them, whilst the coach introduces another ball into play. This becomes, together with the player in possession, the new point of reference for the defense. It is important for everyone to run back quickly and compactly, from the weak side to the strong side, to reform the line of defense. The team lined up on the pitch attacks 5 fixed objectives and carries out various defense moves according to the coach's instructions. The team changes attitude and position on the field as the defensive point of reference changes, moving back and forward, keeping the same distance between players, a compact defense, and the occupation of space. The team is organized to play against fixed objectives and carries out defense moves. The coach puts a ball into play, which is then controlled by a player. He becomes the new point of reference for the defense as if he were an opponent. The ball is then given back to the coach and the whole team contracts. The team lines up in one half of the pitch against 8 passive opponents. The players pass the ball between them. When the coach blows the whistle, they change rhythm and rapidly take the action to its natural conclusion. After concluding the action, the coach gives the ball to an opposing player who immediately becomes the point of reference for the defense. Everyone returns quickly to form the block. Repositioning behind the line of the ball makes it easier to win it back immediately. The exercise is carried out on a pitch of 70 by 50 meters. 6 players, 4 defenders, and 2 midfielders take on 10 opponents using all the tactical movements previously learned. When the coach blows the whistle, 4 players, 2 forwards, and 2 midfielders of the team with fewer players quickly return to reform the block. Thus begins a game of 10 on 10, with the possibility of scoring goals. The whole team prepares to make an attacking move. When the coach puts the ball into play, the players start a rapid attacking move and try to score a goal. In order to succeed in match situations, the players must acquire a skill of rapidly changing attitude, allowing them to move quickly from the winning the ball to concluding an action. The team is lined up against 8 opposing points of reference. They carry out defensive moves on the coach's instructions, who, when he puts the ball into play, asks the team to rapidly follow through an action to its natural conclusion. The coaching aim of this exercise is to make players realize the transition from defense to attack. During the conclusion of the offensive action, correct team equilibrium and the rational occupation of space will prevent the opponents from attacking on the break, if the ball should be lost. The suggested tactical formation is the following: 4 players to finalize the action, 3 players to form the first line of support and defense, 3 players to make up the second line of defense. This exercise takes place in the opponent's half. The players pass the ball between them slowly. When the coach decides to put a second ball into play on the wing, the game speeds up and the team tries to score. The attack triangle is formed of 2 forwards and a central midfielder. The previous exercise is repeated, with the difference that the ball is given to a winger, who exchanges diagonal passes with a forward and crosses. The attack triangle is composed of the 2 forwards and one of the 2 wingers positioned on the far side. In this exercise, the coach introduces the ball on the wing for a forward who then crosses. The attack triangle is thus composed of the other forward, who moves in on the near post, a central midfielder who takes up the central position, and a winger on the far side who runs towards the far post. The team is lined up in zones to defend against a corner. After the goalkeeper or other players clear the ball, the players move quickly out of the penalty area to win space ahead.